most important story that has happened in my life before my daughter was born. So it's named I Protest. The story starts in 2009 for me. And basically 2009, it was really a shitty year. Actually, why I say it is because I was talking to one friend recently who is into investment banking. And he's kind of this investment banker turned into this kind of social activities and civil society too. And he said that in Estonia, 2009, it was so bad year also economically because it's kind of the end of a boom, but people still spent a lot of money and were a little bit out of their minds. And politically, it didn't look very good either. Here is Mayor of Tallinn, Edgar Savisaar, for example, at the local government elections. He was so cynical that he took firewood on central, like Rotusha. It's not Rotusha place in Estonia, but it's next to it. And started to give it away to people so that they would vote. And also he gave away potatoes to people. And so it was basically against many things that you think that in democratic society things should stand for. But at the same time, his opponents, they were not much better because they had raised this ugly Nazi-style monument without really consulting with artists too much. And it immediately started to break down. So you had a lot of visual symbols that didn't look very calming, how to say. So you had economy, people doing a lot of crazy stuff, spending a lot of kind of anger because it seemed to come to an end. People suddenly discovered that they can't spend that much, and then they became angry, and there was a lot of this kind of hidden anger and public anger about everything. I was angry too. And also here is one politician who is not actively in politics anymore. He's not in jail, but he had this kind of on parole. But he was a guy who said that culture people, or these people who are active in culture, like theater people, I don't know, artists, they should remain to their own devices. They shouldn't criticize politics, because politics is something that this kind of professionals do. And people, like cultural people, they should just do culture. And it was also reflected in many coverages. If you had, for example, some kind of critical piece in theater, of course it was in the newspapers as well, but it was only on a culture pages. So you had this kind of criticism and stuff going on culture pages, but not on the front pages. On the front pages you had some regular stuff. And this was very frustrating for cultural people, of course, because they thought that their voice is not heard loud enough if they had their own discontents. Then there is this guy who is Jürgen Ligi, who is kind of straightforward, probably quite honest guy, and he's at the moment our financial minister, but he's also a very angry guy. And around this time, he actually said to one journalist in response in his blog post that he should probably set himself on fire or something like that. So you can see the level and style of discourse or discussion that was happening around this time in Estonia, and it was definitely not good. And people felt really bad. When you take political advertising costs, of course you could see that these were growing all the time. Every election we had, it was like almost doubling every time. And of course, it might even not be a bad thing, but at the same time, there was less and less political discussion, less and less debate. So you could somehow kind of see that this kind of politics migrated into advertising. And this is not a good thing, because what you get in advertising, you get these photoshopped faces, and you maybe could get one single line of promise. And this one single line of promise might actually then make all the decisions, because whose one single line is better will get the elections. And it actually also manifested itself in this kind of visuals all around Estonia during election times. After that, it was silence. And when you tried to say something, you became labeled as some kind of like cultural person who was not in his or her own devices, or some kind of professor who doesn't like Estonia, all these kind of labels. Well, actually, the government had this kind of trope going on that if you criticize, then you should actually say what's the alternative, and if you don't know what's the alternative, then shut up. But this is bad, because sometimes there are people who have good criticism, but it doesn't mean that the same people should have good answers. They just point out that something is wrong, and it's okay. It should be okay, actually, because otherwise you shut up too many people. And in 2010, this all kind of continued. And there is one theater in Estonia which is called NO99. There is one photo of their quite experimental play, and this play actually criticized the Ministry of Culture in a good way, because this play is actually quite well known in Europe. They traveled with this play around in Austria, Germany, Great Britain, in many places. It's always very successfully presented to these audiences too. And I had always had a dream that what if one day I could actually do something together with NO99. And of course at that point I was also quite angry, as I said several times already. And so I got this phone call from these guys, or a guy and a girl who are at NO99, and they said that they have this idea that we should do a really big thing. We should somehow distract the politics. And we got together, and they started to tell about their plan, which also was inspired a little bit by Christoph Slingenschliff, who was a German director, and who is unfortunately dead today because of cancer. But he tried different type of actions. For example, this Wähle dich selbst kind of action is that vote for yourself, and in the course of that they actually invited jobless people to go to a lake which was next to Helmut Kohl's summer cottage, with the hope that maybe this lake will then rise and drown Helmut Kohl's summer cottage. But of course it never happened. But some people went actually into this lake to stand there. So this kind of crazy guy. And we didn't want to do anything less, but we didn't want to do anything very similar either. But we had this plan that it should be, we should turn the cards. We should actually get this culture criticizing and offering its own solutions to the front pages somehow. We wanted to do a shock to Estonia's political system that looked very stagnated to us. We wanted to do a mega performance, and also, as Tiit said, he wanted it to be banned. It should be so radical that it would be banned. And of course it was never banned. And that's the beauty of living in Estonia. Still, we are actually a country where you can do a lot of things without them being banned. So there was this idea that then we will have weeks of some kind of fake political movement, but we won't say it's fake, we say it's real. And we will have like 6 weeks of different political activities, and all the activities we do, we copy them from existing political practices. We will not do anything that has not been done before, but we gather them together. So we interviewed a lot of people behind the scenes. Sometimes they said that they don't want their names to be known, but they gave us quite happily a lot of things, a lot of materials, what is happening. And in the end of that, we wanted to do a really big party congress. And we wanted to have thousands of people there, and we wanted to give them something extraordinary. We wanted to give them insight into politics. And this would be like extraordinary way to experience how it is to be in these party congresses behind closed doors with all the explanations. So we chose a name. It was my idea to choose United Estonia, as in United Russia. This is some kind of national dream that you want to be united, but of course you never can be united. There is always someone who is a minority and so on. So for me it was funny, it was impossible. I was thinking that people will start criticizing this as a joke. But they didn't, even though a parallel with United Russia was so we were really wrong about this thing. You see, this is the hall we wanted to get people to. And it was scary as hell. I mean, I didn't believe that we get these people there. This is the director of, technical director of a theater. He looks also quite scared in this thing. And so we started also, we understood that to play on a political playing field, we need really to, because if you know, if an actor comes to some kind of political event, he normally has kind of, something is offbeat. I mean, the clothes are not right or something is wrong. So already you are not in this playing field. So the advice was to them that they should actually dress like politicians really, invest into good suits and stuff. So the next, I think the next slide is about that. I went with shopping. This guy. So we also had this, this is, I think my discovery for me, myself, was, the problem was that artists, they do not actually last long if you take them to political show on TV or radio, because politicians are actually more clever about how to perform there, because artist is someone who actually, actor is someone who acts. But politician, he's there, he knows his facts, and so there was no way we could actually do this, that we get this, our guys to political shows, and then they would start, they would not fail in 2 minutes. So I did some media trainings to some top people there, and also we developed this model, which is a populism engine, which is actually a kind of like a tap. You see, here is hot, and here is cold, and I told them that you need actually this kind of information flow that is moderate. It's not too hot, not too cold. But every time it gets cold, you need to add hot, and hot is politics. But every time it gets too hot, you need to add cold, because cold is theater. Hello? And so it means that every time, in other words, it means that every time you actually are accused of becoming a political party, you may actually say, no, we are a theater. And every time you are downplayed by saying that, okay, but this is just a theater, we are doing the stuff, and say, no, we are a political movement. And this is how populism actually works. You escape the framing, because if you get framed, you will be someone connected to some institution, either theater or political party. But if you're not connected to this, you are actually acting for the people, or you can do that, because a populist is very clever in that way, and he knows that he needs to be above institutions or in between them. And in that case, he has power to talk for many, and he has this uncertainty around him, but also the possibility to have other people really believing that he can be anything. So this kind of thing was guiding us through all the difficult interviews. Every time we created confusion, the main idea was not to give up or give out what's happening in the end. And so it worked, because many political people in Estonia started to believe that it will be a new party. Media started to believe it. It was, we got so huge coverage that we were covered like on a daily basis. And everyone was speculating. And when we were asked, we also developed this kind of sentences that, well, you know, as in theater, we can't say what happens before the play is in the end. And all kind of things, we developed this kind of political sentences, not meaning much actually, but when we played the theater card, another time we said, and we don't exclude that the new political party will be registered at our big conference. So everyone was confused about it. We also had a logo. And this, if you know, maybe you don't, the Estonian coat of arms is with lions. And this is a two-sided lion. This means that our populistic idea was that that our lions are one-sided, but we will give the people this kind of united lions with two sides. And it looks kind of funny, but it actually started to work. Also, we had this very good deal with this outdoor advertising company, because this is a central location in Tallinn, and this is the only place in Estonia where you actually can have this kind of ads in a way like it really looks like they are everywhere. But we used only one street, but somehow media made it look like that all of Estonia is full of it. And so politicians were at that point quite worried, because we got this kind of request from the Ministry of Culture that send us the budget of play or of a project. And they thought it's 4 million Estonian crowns. In reality, it was at that point maybe 40,000, because these people were so talented. They created the advertising themselves. They had their own designer, but we got really cheap places there. And somehow it really worked. And so we also created TV spots. And maybe you don't see the subtitles in there, but it's not maybe even so important. You see, here are also these kind of slogans that banks should become responsible for unjust loans. They are really off natural. It's quite populistic. Or every Estonian should get 2 hectares of land, and things like that. And we started pushing these things. And we never thought that anyone really believes that it's serious. But at that point, you remember that hall I showed you, it was already sold out. All 7,200 seats were sold out. And we heard about pensioners coming to our congress with buses from different parts of Estonia and all these kind of things. Anyway, our TV advertising, it's, as we were two-sided, we also created, based upon our interviews, explanatory video clips about politics. And I think you can actually find them on YouTube with subtitles. I wouldn't show them to you because it's 8 or 10 minutes each. But I recommend to watch them. It's voting schools. Try to find United Estonia or voting schools and check them out. I'm saying they are good, and you might actually find similarities to Lithuania too. So anyway, this became quite popular, and they've been actually used many times. And we hope that sometimes at schools maybe they use them. But anyway, this is an advertising in TV.
See on Karin. Karini pere võttis 3 aastat tagasi laenu lastele inimese kodu ehitamiseks. Kas ta tõesti paistab teile inimesena, kes suudaks kodulaenu tagasi maksta?
Rahvaküsitluse andmetel arvab 72% Eesti inimestest, et pangad peavad võtma vastutuse ebaõiglaste laenude eest.
Vali ühtne Eesti.
So we said that again, that this kind of people, they can't pay back the loans. Come on, how can they pay back it? So that was the message. But we also went a little bit darker.
Mitme aastaga me pidime rikkaks saama?
Ammu oleks pidanud.
Ja palju meile keskmist palka lubati?
25 000. Naeruväärne.
Unustada tühja kõlanud. Eesti peab tööle hakkama.
Vali ühtne Eesti.
And this needs a little bit more explanation, because at that point, for us, we were quite sensitive people, and for us, there was a feeling that there will actually be someone. If this anger continues, there will be someone who will do this for real. And we wanted to do something against it by doing this first. And, well, I think it was like 3rd week when I saw that this coverage is going away, that the media is getting tired of us. And so we thought that we should do something more. And we used one thing that had been done before by one political party. It's nighttime, so it's a little bit dark. Our own posters. So we got this really, actually many journalists started to think that it's us, but we had this kind of, we asked, we answered in a really vague ways, so we got really angry at this time. And one journalist was really like asking, why can't you say yes or no? And then we brought in some, I don't even remember, but really stupid answer that was actually some kind of like roundabout way of saying that look what the others are doing. Why do you ask us? Or some things like that. But this somehow again pulled it up, and the next week and the next week and the next week we got this coverage after coverage after coverage. So it was really great. I think that now, if I remember correctly, the next slide is our anthem. There is one very famous musician in Estonia who actually, during the singing revolution, had a really big hit, which was Koit or The Dawn. And we asked him to do an anthem for us too. And so he did it, and it's in the same way as this logo is actually a caricature. This anthem is also a caricature. It's going too high, too heavy. There will be these culminations and stuff. And we thought it's kind of like quite obvious, but it wasn't again, because even I started to like it at some point. And this video clip I show you, there are several other activities you can see as a background to that song that we also did, so you can have a picture of that. And you also see already this hall. It's full of people, and it was actually really, when I went there, I was stunned. I was so scared also. We didn't have any security really at the doors. And then we had the 7,200 people, and everyone was totally silent at some point. It was so silent that you could hear actually a coin dropping. And but in the beginning, yeah, they were all played also this song. That's a press conference. We had the journalists there, and they sang the anthem first time. actually played this, and in the beginning, rather in the beginning, and of course our main problem was that we didn't want to make this happening in this room, that people go crazy of patriotism or something. So after that, we immediately showed a clip how parties are actually getting people to party congresses. There was shown a bus of pensioners, and these pensioners were also singing that anthem, and it was kind of out of tune, and it was shown how they were manipulated, how they were told how to vote, for example, and these things also happen all the time. So we showed an actual brochure from a party congress of Procter Union, where actually people you should vote for were marked with markers and things like that. We started telling, we actually took down for a moment this kind of what's called in theater this fourth wall. And we wanted to do this because otherwise we would have cheated these people too much. We would have fooled them too much. We felt actually kind of responsibility because our goal was not to create a bang and make a movie of this, how everything went wrong. We just wanted to get our message across. And so we also, there were several jokes, and people actually started to laugh at this. And then at some point, this guy asked everyone who is paid, I don't know what's the word, there are people who applaud in the public sometimes who are paid, or young members of parties. So he asked everyone who we had set inside the public to stand up, show these are the paid guys. They do it in party conference. At the same time, also to just do this woo, wow, these things. And so also we told them how people are seated in the party congresses. If you're a beautiful person, you're in the front rows, and ugly ones are on the balconies and stuff like that. Or people who tend to go, fall asleep, they are actually put backwards. So we also said all these things, and we knew that it's true. So we actually had a lot of information about it, and well, it's not so big secret anyway. So we did this, but still we created a lot of different directions. It was 4 hours, constant show. So it's quite difficult to give around everything. But one of the climaxes of that show is something that I sometimes feel nauseated of looking, but this is a really important part of the show. This is the entrance of a party leader.
Esimees suure algustähega. Kui ta saabub, põlisevad kruunid. Kui ta saabub, on tema saatjad, noored ja tugevad inimesed, kes on parteile temaga tõusnud. Kui saabub esimees, lehvivad lipud, pulskab tuld, vilguvad tuled ja rahvas plaksutab.
Some people applaud, really. So after that, we had a lot of other things. We had, actually, we had to also calm people down a little bit at some point. So things like that were done. Like party congress, exactly like party congress. And also we created then this kind of tension again, and we said that it is actually possible that we make this new party happen. But in this room today, this might happen, because we also knew that most of the people actually wanted this to happen. It's in Estonia, it's kind of a tradition that people, even in this anthem, there was a mentioning of a thing called white ship. Estonians have looked for white ship for more than 100 years, because there was one prophet who said that once there would be a white ship and take people away into a better place or whatever. And so we've been like waiting for a new party all the time. There was a party called Respublika in 2003. It was a new party, but it failed quite soon, but it got a lot of votes. And so this time it was, again, we played with speculation all the campaign, the 6 weeks, but now we also said that this might happen. And seemingly unexpected things started to happen in this room, because we wanted to, first we wanted to create this board for a new party, and so we asked people to look at their tickets, and everyone started to look at the tickets, and then we had this lottery, and we said that everyone can become part of this board, and so they took this, from this Lototron, we took this piece of paper, and they said the seat number, but to everyone's surprise, it obviously was an actor who sat there. So this is another thing, that some predetermined people tend to get to a board all the time. And so we created this board, and then we said that now we need this main candidate, although Tiit Ojaso already acted as a head of our movement, but for a party we need a head. And so we somehow Tiit became a candidate, and suddenly one guy steps out from the crowd and says, I have another candidate. And he comes to the stage and says this to the public, that I think that there is a really good candidate for that party. And then there was this guy in the room who is very famous in Estonia, and he was our ombudsman. And he said that I think he's a good candidate. And so it seemed that there is a confusion. And suddenly this guy was in the audience and came out, takes out a speech and has a speech. And so people were like, are we fooled or not? What's happening? And the actors acted like it's actually going out of hand. So, and then we had SMS voting. And it's, of course, people logically would have understood that it's not possible to prepare this, that this guy versus this guy is already on the screens. But everyone started to vote for this other guy who came from there. Everyone, he won by like, he got like 66%, and the other got less. But then what happened was that even though the other guy won, the actor said, but wait a minute, we have some votes from regions. And so we started adding this to our guy. So this guy went ahead. And this is again what happens. And it was later explained also that it happens like that there are people who actually have this ability to vote for many others. He has his signatures, comes with 40 signatures, for example. And he has maybe his secretary is in this party, and his family and everyone. He comes with these 40 signatures and has this 40 power one signatures. So it was actually also nothing that we hadn't done. We others hadn't done. And then it was like victory. This guy, our guy, had won. It kind of looked like maybe there will be a new party. And this guy was risen to the heights. And he's rising there with the podium. And a few seconds later, he actually told that, let me down. and he was taken down. And then he had his real speech, which was that you should not always look for a new party. It's not possible. It doesn't help you. And he actually urged people to really participate in politics. He actually used words like, if you don't do politics, politics does you. And he told the people that it's nonsense. Why do you come here, and why do you wait for this kind of newness when you just participate in politics like once in 4 years or something? It's not a solution. It will be another failure. And he actually, the problem was that the day before this mega performance, he lost his voice, and also electricity went away. And you could just try to understand how difficult it is to do this thing, because you only have one chance. If you fail once, you're failed. It's not like with theatrical pieces. You have a first performance, when something goes wrong, but everyone knows that next day it will be fixed. With this, if electricity went away, it would be like really bad problem. So he had this cracking voice, and it actually was good, because it helped. Suddenly he was not this big guy, he was suddenly one of ourselves. And it was actually good, because somehow everyone stood up and was happy about this performance, what happened. There were many people who later said they would have wanted to see this, I don't know, party and so, but we managed to do this so that this thing did not go out of hand, but it was powerful also at the same time. And after that, we had immediately press conference where we exposed every single fake thing we did. And to those journalists who wanted to know if we spoiled our own posters, then yes, we did it. So things like that. We got huge coverage. It was like we later covered a huge wall with different coverages. So we got to a front page finally. So that was kind of one of the goals. And this, everyone was then, like there was no new party, of course, was the main focus. And we went silent, because our point was that if this was not able to explain to you a thing or two, then what else can do this? So, and we also hoped that people would start thinking about what happened, and that they did. For months after that, we got a lot of discussion about it. The theater had a problem, because they had a really good play after that, but people waited for another United Estonia. Then they tried comedy. It was okay, but something is still in the air. And okay, you have this comedy, but well, so it also shows that, of course, people didn't get the message that don't wait for a new party, or don't wait for someone else to do things for you. The point of us was that we did this, now it's your turn to do something. And